Chasing Your Heroes, I did a radio thing once with David Bowie, and he came in looking extraordinarily like David Bowie, as it happens. And, you know, he came and sat down before we went into the studio. And Nicky Horn was doing something in the studio, going out live. And I thought, what do you say to David Bowie? I mean, I love your Ziggy Stardust record. Your Aladdin Sane record changed my life. And I mean, he gets this all the time. I mean, this is what he gets. I said, am I right? And I said, do you ever go back to Brixton? Because we live in Chaucer Road now, and it's not far from Stansfield Road. And he said, no, not so much as I used to. So we drove past the house one day, but I never had the courage to go back in. And we ended up just chatting about Brixton, and was Granada still there? And there used to be that terrible restaurant just behind, And we had a lovely chat. And I just thought it's really nice. And one of the things, I believe, just before he died, he came back with Iman and their daughter, and he did the tour of, Brixton, Beckenham, Bromley, all the places, because you can take the boy out the suburbs, but you can't take the suburbs out the boy.
Well, you talk about Iman. I remember he got a BRIT Awards and a Lifetime Achievement Award where he performed, and she was in the audience. And she was so supportive. I was in charge of the cameras on the floor, trying to get pickup shots, and Goldie was there. He didn't need much encouragement. I say, jump on the table, Goldie, and he'd jump up to get a shot. But Iman, she got on a table and supporting David all the way through. And that's a magic moment, which was edited out. I would have put that in the show because, it just showed that love and everything. I mean, he was such a gentleman. I met him a couple of times.
It's funny you should mention it, because I was on that show as well with you, Judd. And while you were doing that, I was taking him round the back to cue him onto the stage.
Yeah.
And if you remember, he had the tuxedo and the high-heeled shoes.
That's right, yeah.
And Iman was sort of walking along sort of ahead. And I think they left the dressing room together. She went out the front to meet up with you.
Jumped at
and then he went onto the stage. And as we left, she tripped and she sort of stumbled on her heels. Yeah. And his heels were even higher than hers. And I just sort of quipped, we were walking along, and I said, oh, you can walk better in them than she can. And he looked at me and he went, I've had more practice, love.
We were so lucky with the Brits, because I think I've done about 20, 21, 22, I've forgotten.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, we did so many. Judd always did all the cameras on the floor, and I used to do the guest presenters. So
yeah, but I got to
get them out in order for you to get the camera on them.
And then I'd received the awards. I think I've received more awards than any existing living artist. But it was fun, because you see the artist in relaxed mode, and it is quite sweet and quite fun. And then you get the prima donnas like Madonna. I mean, we on the show where she made that. Yeah, we were all there going, my goodness. And Chumbawamba, when I grabbed Chumbawamba's leg over John Prescott and all the war.
They threw the drink over John Prescott, didn't they?
That's right, yeah.
But we were out in the war zone, weren't we? Out on the floor, because a lot of people were hiding backstage, and obviously most of the crew were behind the scenes. But we were actually out. It was terrible out there, because it was just completely full of very, very pissed people who kind of pushed their chair back from the table,
all I had,
their legs up, and then women in heels. And you try and navigate through with an artist, and then some woman in heels is a bit drunk and stumbles back, and the stiletto goes through your foot, and it's agony. And it was just so. It was awful being out there. I like to hide round the back.
Yeah, but I had Malcolm Gary shouting down in my ears, Judd, did you get the shot? Did you get the shot? Where are the cameras? All he was concerned about is getting the shot. And I got Prescott saying, where the fuck are the security men? So there you go. The good old days. Okay, here we go. So, right, with Michael Jackson, Jarvis had done his thing, done his little booty, all going well. Then he sheepishly walked off stage when security started coming. I'd gone backstage and I was doing some of the postscript, or just writing some notes down, what was happening. And I could see all the Winnebagos, and Jarvis is sheepishly walking along. And outside the Winnebago were two policemen, and I saw him react, and it was something like a cartoon character, where he put his hands up, turned around, and then run like bloody hell off to try and get out the way. And then he got arrested. And Michael was going to sue. I mean, they were going to sue the next day, but Jarvis managed to get off with it. I thought, great moment. I loved all those moments. Look at them now. All the young kids now are too sweet, too nice. Nothing goes wrong. I want it to go wrong.
Well, that Jackson one was actually the same show that the Bowie was on.
Oh, what? I've forgotten that. Yeah.
Because I remember standing with David Bowie watching Jackson rehearse.
Yeah.
And it was a strange thing, Jackson being on the show, because it was like the great leveler. There was Michael Jackson doing that, and there was everybody else, including David Bowie. So everyone wanted to sort of, normally he would be the sort of mystical. Watching Jackson rehearse, and David Bowie sort of turned round and he just sort of looked at me and went, "This is fucking surreal," and walked off. That moment where he did the kind of Christ-like thing in the white robes with all the children.
There was a little story I told Steve. Do you remember about Ray Russell?
Yeah.
This led to a word game. Ray Russell's a guitar playing friend of mine, and back in 1967, he was touring with Sweden with Cat Stevens. I think the hit of the day was "I Love My Dog," and the support act was the Jimi Hendrix Experience, because he hadn't really happened yet. And he and Ray and Jimmy got on okay. One night, Ray had gone to bed about midnight, and he was on his room was on the ground floor of this hotel, and he heard a knock at the window. He opens the curtains, and there's Jimi Hendrix outside, standing in his full stage outfit, raising his pajamas or whatever. And Hendrix says, "Hey man, I got locked out. Can you let me in?" So Ray opens the window, and Jimmy climbs in, and they're both sitting on his single bed. Now, the question is, what would you say at that point? Ray said, "Do you fancy a cup of tea?" That's it.
Polite. Yeah, Mo, here's the one for you, Mo. I remember working with Stanley Clarke and George Duke, and we were doing a special. I think it's like an offshoot of the Whistle Test, and it's at the Shepherd's Bush Theatre. And we're at the theatre, and Stanley does play at volume, and I was fascinated by the bass he had, because he had lights in the arm.
It's an electric.
Yeah, well, he's giving it pence, he's slapping and all that bit, and we're going away. And the noise, they kept peaking on the noise. And it was a guy in the audience, BBC monitor man, with the little machine. And I managed somehow to cover it. And I remember George Duke getting his manager to give me a 20 for thanking me for covering it up. And he got away with it. But they used to do that years ago.
Hang on.
Have you got it?
They're like,
yeah.
Lovely bass.
Oh, bloody hell.
BBC Breakfast Time, about 1985 or something, Simply Red, who I couldn't abide. They had a bit of a hit or two. I just couldn't abide them, but they were guests. And Mick Hucknall, God bless him, the What Will He Do When His Looks Go, Hucknall, and his bass player were the guests, and they'd been up all night on the piss, and they'd evidently been doing what rock stars do, and had been for a late night curry. So they'd arrived about 6 o'clock to go on at 10 to 7 with me, completely pissed, absolutely arsehole. And so they sat down, and dear Frank Boff, the presenter, said, "And our special guest today," etc. The camera panned round, and Mick Hucknall was fast asleep. Not only fast asleep, but farting as he lays there. And so it was my job, as you know, over to our pop pundit Steve Blacknell. So I turned to Mick Hucknall, who was now fast asleep and farting, and said, "Well, tell me, Mick." And of course, nothing. Turned to the drummer, had nothing at all interesting to say. And that was it. And right at the end of it, I turned around and said, "Well, thank you, Mick Hucknall, very much. And thanks to Dave Muller. Simply Red, everybody." And it's just incredible. I mean, it was the most non-interview of all time, you know.
Van Morrison must be the ones. I've heard some of the stories about Van Morrison, and where he'll go on and he just refused to answer questions. And there was the classic one with, who's the Liverpool presenter? Female.
Janice Long.
Janice Long. She used to do a show which was like a pre-record of a nighttime of an artist's favorite 5 tracks. And the plugger had arranged everything. And I think Kellogg's was his manager at the time. So it's all been arranged. They go up there, walk in the studio. Janice sits down. Hello, Van, blah, blah, blah. Right, here we go. We'll get it out the way. We got 5 tracks here. There's a blues track by Wah Wah Watkins. I didn't pick that. Yeah, well, we got the list from every record. He was just being a pain in the bum, to the point that she said, I've had enough. If you don't want to do the show, then go off. Eventually, under duress, he did do the show. But I'd love to hear, there must be some folk stories about Van's interviews. There's got to be a book on that. Who's got the balls to do it?
I'll tell you the one thing that pissed me off. We'd done this TV show in Holland, stayed the night, and the following morning we were set to go for a tour of Germany. We come down to breakfast. There's no van. We think he's having a lie-in. And a lot of time goes by, phone calls are made. He's in London. He got the first flight out without telling anybody, cancelled the tour. But we're stuck there in Amsterdam.
Always like, I think somebody did a BBC TV documentary on him, and they went back to Hindford Street where he grew up, and they interviewed his next door neighbour, and she was this girl, and she said, like, you know, it was back to back, and we were next door, and we always had the Morrison's keys in case somebody got locked out, and they always had ours. And Van came back from, you know, George Ivan Morrison came back from school one day, aged about 10 or whatever, and the girl next door had locked herself out of the house. She said, oh, George, you know, can you go in and get the keys so I can let myself back into my parents' house? And he just looked across the fence and went, no, walk back in. And that was Van at 10 years old. So, plus orange.
Grumpy old sausage. Fraser Kennedy, I think, has got a lot of those stories.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Fraser, always funny.